Hello, everyone. Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest head into the latest international break, 10th in the Premier League after a great point at Chelsea. We'll discuss that frenetic game in full, plus take a glance backward on the recent games and forward to important upcoming ones in the company of, first of all, Pete Blackburn. Pete, good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Quite relieved to actually be here because during that second half yesterday, I thought I might actually have a heart attack at some point and not make this. Relieved to be here. And also, thoughts and prayers with the TV exec who thought that showing Man U Villa would be a better option than that because I can't imagine he's having a great morning.
No, that sounds like one of the worst games going, certainly. Good to have you with us. Michael Temple, how are you? How's your voice going to come out? Let's hear.
I feel good, but I sound terrible. So I don't need any sympathy. I wasn't out last night with David Prutton. In fact, I'm up for that, actually. If you're a fancy little blowout, Prut, so I can sound like this for good reason.
Correct.
Give me a shout.
Definitely.
David Prutton, how are you?
I'm good. Not as croaky or as pathetic sounding as Temps. All good.
Pathetic soundings, really laying it on.
I remember, I think it was John Hazelden who was a physio at Forest, and he took great umbrage with players ringing in with a throat like that and then claiming they had, I don't know, the runs or something. He said, "Well, why are you talking like that if you've got diarrhea?" Like, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Sorry. See you tomorrow. Thanks.
Well, you've laid down a marker early on there. I like it. Pete, kick us off. You text me with, I think, about 3 minutes to go of injury time. And I think I was on a slight delay in my method of viewing. And I think it just said one 4-letter word. And I thought, oh, God, we've conceded. But it was just your expression of nerves and terror that the game was still going and still dramatic. What did you make of it, especially that second half?
I feel like I need to check my messages because I can't remember what that word was, but I'm guessing it was something relatively fruity. I guess the main takeaway is that sort of pride, I suppose. It's nice to have a team that's got a real plan, a manager with an instinct for how a game might play out, and just the incredible togetherness and character that we saw throughout that team, not least from Ryan Yates, who hopefully we'll talk about a bit today. A team coming together in adversity through, difficult moments, given we're the sending off and, under the cosh for fairly large amounts of that game. Just really proud of the players and coming away feeling incredibly hopeful that this could be a really special season.
Is that your main takeaway, Temps, just in terms of discipline, resolve, bottle, all that kind of stuff that sets you up to do well over the longer term?
And tactical now. So I think it was a performance and a result to be proud of. We've just got this method of playing away now where Nuno seems adept at making the game shorter, if I can describe it in that way, getting to 50, 55 minutes without conceding, and then knowing you've got a better chance of taking on the so-called big six in a shortened game when you get more adventurous. But it just works away. We're happy to concede possession because when we have it, we spring quickly, we play efficiently. We have this ratio of shots to passes, which is just a demonstration that we don't have a possession-based style. We try to exploit the pace that we've got in the side and build attacks quickly. So a great deal of pride. I think we'll discuss some of the individual performances, but there were 2 or 3 outstanding players for Forest in and amongst a real squad performance and another great point on the road.
It's interesting, Prutz, that both lads there said proud or pride, and that was the word that came up first on the post-match show. I guess that's what fans want, and you want great to be proud of your team, and also a team that looks like it knows what it's doing at the elite level.
Yeah, and we've discussed on here before, and my slightly pessimistic take on what Forest's aim should be are kind of blown out the water when you see a game such as that and the way that they went about Chelsea. Still, there's always that element and need for consolidation, but without putting too much emphasis on it, going back to what Pete's point was, there was a real, and it's been building this season, but it almost felt like there was a real in-game growth of what the team is capable of, and what the squad's capable of, because everyone's been waxing lyrical about how good Chelsea are, outside shouts potentially for the actual title itself. But Forest were absolutely part of the thrill of that. It was a gloriously chaotic game where if Forest, barring 2 wonderful saves at the end, had come away with a win, I think only a really hardened Chelsea fan would have gone, well, I'm not sure about that, because all the ingredients were there. You get a goalkeeper that has that's the type of game that he does. defensively staunch. Milenkovic more than Murillo, and I'm sure we'll come on to that as well, because he does have a swing sometimes, doesn't he, with regards to the output during the course of a game, and a very kind of solid base in front of them, which these are all very good players and I respect them all immensely, but individually, maybe they're not quite there. But as a collective, my God, they're there with bells on, aren't they? And they really do complement each other, from Ryan to James and into Morgan in front of them. So much to love about it, so much to kind of take from it. I don't know, we sound quite excited about it, which I think is brilliant. I mean, there's been a lot of times when there's been a bit of head scratching and wondering about Nuno and his approach and what we think he wants from the team. But going back to Temps's point, it's a really good take on what football is, and I'm absolutely going to nick it about shortening the game, almost kind of playing two separate games inside the same 90 minutes. Get here, and we've got so many different options given how the game's going. If we need to hold on to a bit and consolidate, we've got these options. If we think, sod it, let's go for it because we can get the win here, you can change it once again. So much to like, and so much to really respect from what we saw yesterday.
And Prutz makes a good point there, Temps, about the part we played in it. I mean, the subs, when Tyree didn't come on, I was surprised, but Jota Silva gets you up the pitch, Nico's energy gets you up the pitch, and you can still create chances. And also, we made it as hard as we possibly could for Chelsea to play through us. Cole Palmer's always going to do something, but then when he does, Matz Sels is there to do his job and a little bit more yesterday.
I really like Jota Silva. I think he's unstructured in the nicest possible way, that he just plays heads-up football, chases lost causes, hassles, and always seems to create a chance or two. And he had that header at the end, didn't he, which could have changed the course of the game. So the options we have from the bench now are such that we can try and hold on, try and chase it, or do something in between. And that last 5-10 minutes, I'm not sure we quite knew what we were doing. That Jota Silva chance came after a period of trying to hold it in the corner. And then we thought, let's chuck one in the mixer and see what happens. And it almost came off. So the depth is impressive. And let's not forget, we're doing this without Danilo and Sangare. It's going to be tested even more now. Ward-Prowse is going to have a suspension. Morgan Gibbs-White is going to have a little period on the sideline. So all of a sudden you're calling on the squad. But I think we all have greater faith in the depth. Whereas in the past, there's probably some question marks on those players that are outside the core 11. This performance and some of those that have gone before it have done no harm to the cause of those trying to break into this side.
Let's talk about there's quite a lot of key incidents. Normally I'd have more general thoughts, but there's so much to get through. We'll just go through all of them. I want to get all of your takes on the red card. I'll start with Prutz because I got some flack on Twitter because I said he shouldn't have handled it, and people said I want to hear a former pro's point of view, which is
why are you asking David Prutton about needless yellow cards?
About stupid sendings off.
Well, that's the question. I know. So put yourself in that situation, Prutz. I kind of think, is it human nature to grab the ball? And then should he have done it? Because I wish he hadn't, because I think we might have got away because it was so high up the pitch. But then I put myself in his shoes, and I guess you'd probably just grab the ball because it's right there. It's
instinct.
What's your view on
That's
it?
what it is. It's just total and utter instinct from someone that has momentarily lost his bearings on the football pitch, and given the fact that it's not done when he's been on his feet and he's kind of logistically he knows what he's doing. It's done when he's scrambling on the floor, and I think it is just literally that he's hit the panic button, and that's his natural reaction. Off the back of that, when you're kind of looking into positions, the position of his teammates, and as you say, how far away from goal potentially the player was if it had gone through. But yeah, I mean, it's irresponsibly responsible because doing it looks ridiculous and could have cost Forest, but his first instinct was, how do I stop potentially an attack going? That's the reason why he's done it. Quite correct, of course, to get booked. And it's always one of those, again, having come to me with this question, asking why you would do that and potentially what it feels like in that particular instance. The yellow card comes out, he starts walking off, he adjusts his socks, the half comes back, and it's like, James is not going to change his mind, mate, is he? He's not going to go, no, actually, now you've come back to this. And I've done it many a time. I can't believe you. Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind. There was no VAR anyway by then. But yeah, it's a shame in the sense of what you got, as I said, those parts together and how they really complemented each other. Whether there's a shout for a different combination when Forest are at home, we'll discuss, I'm sure. But I felt for him in a way because he's a player that I've always liked. James, he's a very, very good footballer. Seems to be an extremely good teammate and good fellow around the place. And that was just natural kind of panicky instinct that made him do that. And on another day it may have cost Forest on that. And then on the flip side of it is you think, given the way Forest approached those last 10, 15 minutes, if they'd have gone there with 11 men, they could have come away with a win. So, all very hypothetical. Totally understand why he did it, but he'll be kicking himself for doing it.
What about you, Pete? And also, what about his performance? He seems to have attracted this in recent games, this notion that he doesn't do anything, apart from free kicks. But I thought he was good yesterday until he got sent off. What did you make of it?
On the sending off incident, absolutely no criticism from me whatsoever. I think you've got to try to be fair to players and think about the decision that they're making in the heat of the moment, right? Because it's very easy for us to all sit there and sort of zoom out from the pitch and map out where all the players are and whether he should have in that split second, decided that he needs to check the trajectories of Jackson's run and where Murillo can make it and all that sort of stuff. But that's mad, isn't it? I think he's made a perfectly reasonable, instinctive decision that who knows could well have kept us in that game. I'm sure in hindsight he may feel differently about it, but you got to back him in the moment. I don't think it was a ridiculous thing to do whatsoever. And on his wider performance, I thought it was absolutely fine. I don't understand why he's getting criticism at all, to be honest. I think he's brought a sort of calm, feeling of sort of assuredness to the team. He does things very, very simply and quite efficiently, I think. And I don't think he'll be getting. He's not producing an awful lot of moments where he's sort of really standing out, apart from those set pieces where he's going to be wildly noticed. But if you look at all the touches that he takes and the passes that he plays, they're always just really well done. I think the passes are always in front of players where they want them. You never sort of see him letting people get caught out. I think his touches are always just really solid and keeping us going, and I think that's been really useful for us. I think he was, he's been quieter in games since the Liverpool game, but I thought yesterday he did a really good job in an incredibly difficult game. An absolute battlefield against a really, really good team who we were all thinking before the game, maybe we're going to end up conceding 6 or 7 here because they're red hot and anything could happen. So I think you can't really sort of adapt your expectations and give the guy some plaudits. I think he's done a good job stepping in. He's also not really the player that we're asking him to be. I think at the moment he's sort of having to be our calm head 6 because he's the guy who can sit deepest and try and dictate things a little bit and keep a calm head while Yates is rampaging all around the pitch doing damage. And it's not his game. So personally, I think he's been a really good addition. I'm very happy with that, and no criticism on the red card for me.
Same question, Temps, but also a couple of people in the chat pointing out about, we're running out of midfielders a little bit now with Danilo, Sangare and Ward-Prowse out for the next game, and potentially Morgan as well. Any worries on that front, or have we still got enough to get through?
Well, if you want to know how to flop forward onto a football, grab it and get a free kick given your way, you need to look at Ryan Yates. He does it 7 times a game with aplomb. The world's foremost expert in grabbing a free kick that you've bought with minimal contact from behind. Love that about Yates and how much it frustrates the opposition. I think it was a bit needless. I think Murillo's making a covering run and would have got there. It's a long way to travel from that distance, although there are, of course, echoes of the Stevie Gerrard moment where he didn't grab the ball and the rest is history. So hindsight's great. We got a point out of it. So we have to respect the decision he made in that instinctive split second, as Prutz describes. We'll miss him when he's gone. And to Pete's point, I think having a deep lying creative playmaker just allows Morgan Gibbs-White to vacate that space and get on the ball in the final third. Because there have been times in the past, and Morgs did struggle to get into the game first half, where Morgan Gibbs-White has found himself coming deeper and deeper and deeper and been a bit less impactful because he's then not on the ball in and around the box where he can probe and make decisions, create goals, get his shots off. So I'm probably slightly against the fellas. I'd like to think that if he hadn't have made that split-second decision, Murillo could have come and mopped off the lot. Maybe he'd have got a straight red for that. Who knows? But we'll miss him. We'll miss him during the suspension. I think he's made a good impact, and he's going to play 30-plus games for Forest this year.
I do want to come back to Murillo and Milenkovic, but just sticking with midfield briefly, Prutz. I know Pete's going to do some Ryan Yates propaganda, surely, but you can talk about Yates if you want. But also, Elliot Anderson's an interesting one. They played him on the left, sort of tucking in. I thought when he was signed as the Georgie Maradona, the backup number 10. He's kind of the industrious midfielder. That's kind of a bit of a jack of all trades. So give a word on how impressed you've been with him, if you have.
Well, the good thing is with that, if you're thinking about what a very cliched and stereotyped take of a 10 is, which is a lot of stuff going forward, but not necessarily much in the kind of trenches sense. Whereas where he plays, as you say, tucked in there with the aspiration to get forward, but the industry to make sure that he's in touch with the rest of the midfield and the players behind him. So once again, I mentioned obviously that kind of middle three with Morgan at the point, but with Elliot on that side, not being stuck out on the wing because he's not a winger, means that there's especially away from home, the bodies in the middle of the park, and you'd feel that against a team like Chelsea. The worry would be, the concern would be that you would go somewhere like that and feel like you're all stretched out, and suddenly you think it feels like you're playing in front of 20 blue shirts because they've got that many options on the ball. There's that many pockets for them to sit in, which I think when you do play like Forest did yesterday with Anderson in touch with the rest of the midfield, then it really does close that space. And what they all thrive of course, someone like a Cole Palmer is finding little pockets. And if you sew up as many of those as possible, there's less chance, obviously, to get exposed. So I thought, again, as a part of a collective, did really, really well. I think we discussed it very, very early on in the season, potentially about what Forest were going to get out of him, but I think he's a real kind of workable string to the Forest bow in the sense that he can play in more than one position and has got the aptitude and the attitude to do what Nuno wants, which is what he needed to do was transform the way Forest thought defensively, not just sit there and wait to be attacked, but actively go and box off the pitch higher up, which is what he's done, and which is what, take the game yesterday, for example, Elliot's part of.
Yeah, when he wins the ball, in previous seasons, we probably would have either gone backwards or lost it, but he helps us keep it. I think that's a big difference. Pete asked why he can't play the full 90. Surely he should be fit enough. I think he can. He doesn't look knackered when he's coming off. He looks annoyed when he's coming off to me. So I think it's a tactical thing. He covered a lot of ground and they want to get someone else on to do the running. But I think he can, certainly. Pete, when I sent out the show notes and the running order, I didn't have Ryan Yates' name on it, and you sent it back to me. I want to say something about Ryan Yates. So feel free to say something about Ryan Yates before we move on.
I feel like you've set the stage too high for me there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to live it. I haven't sort of penned a monologue for the moment. Just on Anderson, I just say, I think his sort of versatility in industry sort of leaves us overlooking just how good a player he is as well. He's so good with his feet in tight spaces. He drifts into space really well. Brilliant ball winner as well. I think it looks to me like he's basically got everything and could just be a proper, complete number 8 for us for years to come. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, on Yates, I was looking at I was having a look at FotMob through the stats, and his name is such a long way down the list when you're looking at the sort of player rankings that they do. And I guess a lot of what he contributes during a game is quite hard to capture in stats. Temps obviously mentioned about how good he is at falling over and winning the free kicks and those sorts of moments and things like that. But, those things are so valuable.
Jack Lester used to do. He used to get penalties all the time doing that, Jack. He practiced it.
Perhaps if we were doing the podcast back then, I'd have been ranting about how brilliant you are as well, Pat. I mean, to be fair, I still do that sometimes.
Just not all, but seemingly I like him. Let me very quickly put it, and then you go. It's being Ryan Yates and a player such as me, worlds away from each other, but tiny little similarities, and it's. And maybe this is me waving a banging the drum for a particular type of player that sometimes stats don't favour. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I've had teammates that you think, God, I love playing with you. And then if you had to sit down and really break it down, you go, well, what does he do? I don't know, but I really love playing with him. And he always seems to be there to help. And I'm oversimplifying it for a footballer who will be earning a vast amount of money a week playing in the best division on the planet. But it's so. I get the feel from what you're talking about, but it's the intangibles that almost kind of make you love him even more.
Absolutely. I can't actually find the words for what I love about him. I guess what you're saying, it brings to mind what this always sticks with me, and I don't really know why, but Sean O'Driscoll used to talk about the glue in the Forest team and how, I mean, his was a team that played really sort of nice, expansive football, or certainly had that sort of that ambition of being pretty possession heavy, but and penetrating opposition in a really, really sort of attractive way, I guess. But he needed those players to be the glue that gave a sort of platform for everyone else. And I think that's what Yates does for us. You just really notice it when he's not in the team. I mean, I think what I love most about him is that I just can't think of a better example for a footballer, or I guess frankly any of us, for getting the absolute best out of what you've got, and in the least patronising way possible. He's obviously a really talented individual, and at the very top of his game. But he just never knows that he's beaten. He never feels like his work is done. All fans are constantly saying, how's he going to get a shirt back? We signed X player from X club for huge amounts of money. But the question he's asking is, how the hell is this person going to take the shirt off me? And he's always asking that question. I just love the sort of the sheer consistency and desire of the man. And technically speaking, it looks like he's really improving as a footballer as well. Like away from some of those sorts of intangibles or mental attributes and stuff. He's really contributing for us now. And I think there are going to be times this season where he comes up big with goals. And I think he could have he was pretty close to doing that yesterday with that chance where Colwell blocked it as well. I think it was Colwell, a sort of magnificent block out of nowhere. I just think he's maturing brilliantly. It's always lovely to have that academy player that makes you feel like you're sort of out there in a sense, but it's so much more than that. Just remarkable professionalism, and the way that he goes around his business on the pitch, being an absolute pain in the arse to play against, but doing it with he does it with no malice whatsoever. There's a smile on his face. There's no real.
You sure?
I think it's just like it's competitiveness to the nth degree, and I absolutely love that about him.
I think as well, it's speaking purely from a football team, as in the 11 on the pitch, and obviously the subs ready to come on. Chemistry is such an important thing, and I think the balance of a team can get swayed by personalities as much as players, and we all know that when someone comes in and is deemed to be a wrong un or a bad egg or whatever. But his energy and his enthusiasm and his attitude to what he does is absolutely it rubs off on all the players. You can tell it rubs off on the fans. And going back to what I said about the intangibles, it's just having someone like that on a pitch can lift the chemistry of a team, but without getting too deep and subconscious about it. But knowing that there's someone out there with legs who gives a toss, it can really influence a team, really inspire a team, and I think that's what he does. I think to call him inspirational is by no means an over exaggeration. He is an inspirational teammate to a lot of the players, and he'll inspire them in different ways, whether it's to throw themselves in front of a shot at the end, or whether it's Morgan to find a little pocket of space, whether it's Chris up top leading the line. He will inspire those different factions in different ways. But I've always really thought, and not just because I've come across him a couple of times and he's been a lovely kid, and someone's made a great point in the comments, third season in a row he's battled back into the side. That takes a lot of real fortitude and speaks volumes of his character. Never beaten, whether it's beaten by his own manager by not being in the team, but beaten by the opposition. Never gives up. That to me is one of the greatest aspects to his game and to his personality.
A few tangibles, the intangibles then that I read out yesterday from Ian Finch, friend of the show, just around Yates's stats. Most shots in the game with 3, most duels in the match with 15, won 7 of them. 1 possession back the most times for us, 5 times, and he ran 11.17 kilometres. That's more than any other Forest player. So that kind of quantifies what he did as much as you can beyond the words that we have said. Right, here is a huge shift in gear with our advert for the NAV and the upcoming M&M show. See you in 17 seconds. There you go. Saturday, the 2nd of November.
That was Prutton in a cap, wasn't it? Go and get a hoodie, a cap, and a mic and give us a blast.
I've got my hoodie here. Yeah, and then drop me some sick lyrics, of course.
I was going to say, I'm not sure this is the panel for it. Perhaps you love your music, but I don't think Eminem's top of the list. Is he for you? I don't know.
I'm partial to a little bit of Eminem. Yeah, I think he's good. I mean, latterly, the new, very boring. The last album that he brought out, we put it on in the car with my son, who for some reason likes gangster rap, which has come from absolutely nowhere. And he's bobbing along, and I'm at the age now. I'm going, I think it's a little bit inappropriate what you're rapping about, Eminem. Even if you're playing a character, you're just being horrible about people, aren't you? And then play it all the time when I'm on my own, like bouncing around in the car.
Well, I'm sure it'll be a good show for those who do enjoy Eminem.
Who's going? Tell us in the comments who's going.
Straight out of Harrogate.
Brought up on the wrong side of the tracks in Harrogate, yeah.
It'll be full. It'll be sold. Well, I can say sold out. It's free, so you don't even need to buy a ticket. But I know it'll be absolutely rammed. So I'm sure it'll be a good night. Right, let's go back to the big talking points just quickly, because there's so much to get through. Just on the Nico trip and how it was handled. There's some footage that Nicholas Jackson slapped Morato, so he might be in a bit of trouble. But just in general, does anyone have any issues around the yellow card for anyone? Did the ref handle that well? Anyone got any opinions on that or not?
Handbags, gave it short shrift, dealt with it. On we go.
Yeah, I think
Mark had it right on the post-match show yesterday. That for me, the biggest sort of take home from that moment was the way that Maresca dealt with it. I just thought that was, you see so many managers just piling in and it becoming even more of a mess than it was. But he was just pretty cool and dignified about it. And I quite liked that.
Do you know as well? And this is just jog my memory about what I was watching last night. The point I wanted to bring up, and he's had a wonderful career and he's obviously winning a lot of stuff. But oh my God, Cucurella, does he get on your nerves or what?
He's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Oh my, yeah, that's really just jogged my memory. I thought last night I'm going to go writing on him, but I thought I better calm down now. But just, I don't know, he's got so many good attributes, and you can call it whether it's a difference in cultures or whatever, or a word that begins with S and ends in house. But it just, you just watch it and you just think, why, what are you doing? It's a contact sport for adult males, which is what male football is. What are you doing? But he's playing for Chelsea on about £1 million a week, and he's won the Euros. So what do I know?
I think you need about 5 Yateses to balance out that character in the dressing room.
Yeah. I tell you why I brought it up really, because I didn't really want to talk about it. The footage of Cole Palmer is really funny. I don't know if you've seen it. He stands away from it and he kind of sits down and rocks back and just watches it all happening. And I like the purity of his brain. I don't want to make it sound like he's thick, and I don't think he is.
Have you seen some of his interviews, Matt? Have you seen some of the compilations of Cole's interviews?
He might end up being a bit of a Beckham character, because early Beckham sounded like that. And I think he loves his football. And he was on a yellow card, so he's smart enough not to get involved. But I just he's
a glorious player to watch. I know we're going from a heavy Forest bent here, but my God, that boy can play football in a way that is just magical. No effort to what he does at all. Just naturally gifted, naturally able to deal with whatever's thrown at him on a football pitch. I mean, I don't know whether you've meant, obviously you won't because it's not a Chelsea podcast, but you look at even more so now, you're going, I love Gareth Southgate, but my God, why wasn't that kid on the pitch all the way through the Euros? Dealing with pressure. It's like, what pressure? 80,000 people watching, and just cracks on, doesn't it? And that, like you say, Matt, that reflects a very, very good temperament, whether that's worked on, whether that's something that he's kind of putting out there to play on. It works for him, and he's just a thing of wonder.
Yeah, true. Sticking with Palmer shortly, sort of attempts. Like Matz Sels came up big, those two big saves. Just in general on Sels' performance. But the thing I want to talk about today on Sels was a lot of people in the chat afterwards said, I hope that, Sels has proved people wrong. I think that ends the debate. Does it end the debate, or will we be back here as soon as he makes another error? Or will we all be debating him again?
We certainly owe him a point for yesterday. I think he was outstanding. The save from the Nkunku header, and most importantly, that double save from Cole Palmer after a touch around the corner, which was straight out of the top drawer, wasn't it? He's an exceptional player. And we saw what he did last week and managed to keep him relatively quiet. Matz Sels is the number one for me for the rest of the season. I think he's ahead of Miguel. I think he does make instinctive saves, but his positioning is exceptional too. So as evidenced by that fast break after our chance and the Nkunku header, he made it look relatively comfortable. That's because his footwork was so good and he stood exactly where he needed to be. we're going to revisit the goalkeeping debate of Forest because we have for 3 years now, and there are going to be times when he's exposed. But I hope that was the breakout performance yesterday. What does he need to do now to put it to bed? Back it up. Let's have 2, 3, 4 games where we're not talking about the goalkeeper, where he is consistently contributing to the clean sheets and one of the meanest defences in the Premier League, which Lee Hendry, and I think it was Jackie Oatley, discussed it at length during the commentary yesterday. I think we're able to achieve our goals this year with Matz Sels in net. His distribution is really good, and he was very unlucky for that yellow card. That was not time wasting. What Brice Samba did game after game after game was time wasting. What Matz Sels did yesterday, pick up a ball that he hadn't placed and put it down, picking a yellow card in 3 seconds, was a bit of a travesty for me. But he was my man of the match, and he'll always be remembered for that Nkunku save, which is earned us a point at Stamford Bridge.
I wasn't really thinking of Miguel. People in the comments talking of Miguel. I was more thinking of January, Pete, when we had the chance to buy another goalkeeper. That's what I was thinking of. But just on that and those Sels saves, and which one impressed you most and that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the saves from Palmer were really sharp, and I mean that touch from Palmer to create the chance was absolutely insane as well. I mean, everything that Prut says about him was that in a moment, wasn't it? Just the sort of how carefree he is, and just unbelievable. Sort of like watching some of the finest players we've ever seen. Sort of Bergkamp touches in those moments. I mean, on Sels, as things stand, I just don't think there is a debate because none of us have seen Miguel play for any reasonable length of time. He's hardly played any football in his career anyway. And, Nuno's the one making a decision in what is essentially a vacuum for the rest of us because we haven't got a clue. I've got absolutely no idea what sort of quality Miguel's got really. And I don't think Sels has done enough for us to be sort of chasing for him to be out of the team either. I think, he had a brilliant game yesterday. I don't think he's generally let us down an awful lot. We often see those sorts of moments where it feels like a goal that an opposition team has scored might just be a little bit soft. And I guess that's where we are with him. But the improvement from where we were before, where we had goalkeepers that just made us feel generally scared throughout games and presumably had the same impact on the defenders, given the sort of performances we had there, is massive. I think it's quite a sort of quiet thing with Sels because he's not a massive personality. You don't really see him sort of dominating his area and that sort of thing. But he's definitely been a big improvement for us. I think my instinct is that they'll be looking for a keeper in January. It seems like that's been the case sort of pretty consistently. We know that Sels was a long way down their list of options, but at that point, it just felt like we needed to make a change there because of what I mentioned about things just being such a sort of a chaotic at the back. So I think that they will look to do business, but I think it's the same principle that it should be for any other position in our team now, is that we strengthen from a position that is pretty strong now. So if we find someone who is tangibly better than what we've got for a decent price, and it's a reasonable deal all round, then that's where we go, whether it's in goal or another position on the pitch. But I don't think we need to be rushing into anything. It's not like January last year where we feel we have to go down to 8th, 9th, 10th on our list to bring someone in because we're desperate. So that's sort of where I'm at with it. I think we've talked about Sels a bit too much personally because we've brought in a keeper from Brazil who's massive and it's all a bit sort of exciting and interesting. But I just don't see it as a conversation that I can really engage in because I've got no clue what he's like really.
As Peter says, do us a favour, hit subscribe on the video. It takes like a second to do and does make a big difference. So appreciate you just taking a moment to do that. I suppose it was a game of keepers, really, wasn't it, Prutz, as well? We haven't mentioned Sanchez. Yeah, I mean, Sels saves were brilliant, but I thought the best of the whole lot was the one from Jota's header in the 113th minute. I don't think Jota could do any more there, could he?
No, it's a wonder save, and it's what that keeper's capable of. But we also know what he's capable of at the other end, where not the other end, but in the other instance of allowing pressure and potentially having a bit of a rick in him. But he was in inspired form, and again on another day, Forest come away with a late winner, and this is an even happier podcast chat today, isn't it? So, that again just reflects that quality of goalkeeper at that level of football club. But with the example of what Sels brought to Forest yesterday, 2 goalkeepers that are 2 very, very good games in an entertaining game. And like you say, Jota couldn't have done any more. It's a wonderful header. It's an unbelievable save.
Yeah, and the one from Nico as well. So it's to be fair, I thought Nico did it. That was a good effort. You mentioned earlier Murillo, like you were hinting at what you wanted to say about him. Like he's in my notes here. Like Milenkovic outstanding, almost faultless. Murillo, the best and the worst. What did you make of him?
Yeah, classic Murillo, isn't it? And I think the standards that he's set means that potentially when we look at him taking chances and making mistakes aren't just solely down to one person. Sometimes it can be a culmination of things leading up to you actually being the one that makes the mistake. And that's not me saying that you should always point the finger at other people, but when he goes marauding forward and the shot, it's just brilliant, isn't it? Another one of those wonderful sights in football. The centre half who thinks sod it, I'm off, and goes and does that. But I think because he really stood out last season as possibly Forest's best / most exciting defender, and whether you want a defender to be exciting or just effective, that's a different debate altogether. But the fact that he's got Milenkovic next to him, who seems very composed, very classy, very in control of what's going on and the people around him, hopefully reins in that little bit more of the kamikaze that you get from Maria. But like I said, there's loads to love about him. And going back to Pete's point, where we said about watching games and being scared about what the goalie might do, I think it helps across the board. So as a defence, if you've got a goalkeeper that you're not too sure in, sometimes that can make the defence wobbly. I also think from a goalkeeper's point of view, and trying to play devil's advocate for Sels and whether there's a debate to have him in or out, if he looks in front of him and he's got Milenkovic and a Murillo that's in the mood, surely as a goalkeeper, you're thinking, oh, thank Christ, I might be less busy today. Or there'll be less kind of things that come out of nowhere for me to deal with. It might settle the goalkeeper down. Therefore, you might get the two elements really pushing each other to be consistent and perform. So, yeah, I mean, Murillo at this level, and sometimes how we've discussed him in the past about who might come and ask for him and bid for him and what money they could get for him, I think it just goes to show what type of player he was. There's still part of it feeling like a work in progress because he is still a young player. But I always think the positives with him far outweigh whatever potential negatives you could chuck up because of what he brings to the side. And again, going back to the glue analogy that Pete used about a Yatesy, Maria does that, lifts the crowd, lifts the energy, lifts the mood, doesn't he? So sometimes it is a little bit heart in mouth, but I think it's worth it for what he gives to the side.
Oh yeah, massively. It's just those turnovers in bad areas, but that's you take the rough with the smooth in, and he is a young, improving player. Leads us carrying on with Milenkovic. Temps leads us into the goal. You can talk about his performance as well, but he set the goal up, nice assist, and then Chris Wood he does what Chris Wood does, doesn't he?
Yeah, crediting Chris Wood there. So he's flicked it off the outside of his foot and found the corner. I think I've just got to put so much more respect on Chris Wood than I and others had when he went through that lean patch when he first arrived. Having watched him for the amount of time we have now, we can see there's so much subtlety to his game, and he's so much more than the battering ram, which me included, lazily thought he was off the back of Match of the Day highlights and a few stats on Soccerware or whatever. He scores very different types of goals. He's got good feet. His anticipation is incredible, and he does have that physical presence to hold off some of the man mountains that mark him in the Premier League. So it was a good ball. It was a really unselfish header from Milenkovic back across the face. But there was a lot to do with that, and to find the back post in one touch is what we've come to expect of Chris Wood. He's so far ahead of Taiwo. I think the previous performance was indicative that Taiwo is not ready for first team football. I know there was a bit of debate about that, and that he may well have further involvement or come to press Chris Wood for that starting place. I think Chris Wood is so far ahead of Taiwo at the minute, and as long as he keeps doing what he's doing as he did at Chelsea, he's my 9 for the rest of the season.
I mean, he's not carrying the attack, obviously, Pete, but he's carrying the burden of goals. It's ridiculous how consistent he is in front of goal and has been ever since Nuno came in. It's pretty mad, really.
It's pretty remarkable, to be honest. I think this morning I had to sort of sit and have a little think about what he's actually done, because it's insane the sort of achievements that he's had from what we were all thinking when he signed, as Temps mentioned. I mean, I was looking at Opta this morning, and he's now behind, I think, only Brian Roy and Stan Collymore in Forest's all-time Premier League goalscorer charts. Admittedly, we've not been in the Premier League an awfully long time through that period, but still pretty impressive. And if he has, reasonable luck with injuries, he'll easily top that this season. He's 5 away from first place. He scored more Premier League away goals than everyone bar, I think, Haaland, Watkins, and Cunha since the start of last season. And he's doing that in a team that is really not creating an awful lot when we go away from home. I'd say he's working with scraps, but it's not. Sometimes it's not even that. He's just taking moments that should not necessarily be moments at all, and with real sort of mad deftness. It's the sort of the nuance and deftness of his finishing is nuts. You remember that goal against Luton, that header? Just some of those moments that he's creating are absolutely crazy. And I sort of can't really believe it's happening still, to be honest, because I had this perception of him being sort of a big head in the box striker, but it's just not that at all. I mean, as Temp says, I mean, I've got a pretty good appetite, but there is absolutely no chance that I could eat enough humble pie to satisfy the need here. It's ridiculous. He's been amazing. So yeah, credit to him. I mean, on that goal as well. I mean, good luck to anyone trying to compete when James Ward-Prowse is sticking it on Milenkovic's head, because they're both just the absolute masters of those moments, aren't they? I thought it was a really, really lovely goal, and just so unusual for us to be scoring set piece moments. I think Mark had some good stats about that on the pod last night. So yeah, just really, really nice to see, and proper kudos to Wood. He's been incredible, and I think it's no reflection on personally what Temps mentions about Taiwo. I think Taiwo is still a useful option for us, but it's no reflection on him really that Wood is miles away our first choice number 9, because he's just been phenomenal.
Oh yeah, massively. Mark referenced the turnaround in set piece goals. We've now got the best expected goals conceded in the league for set pieces. So Milenkovic has obviously made a big difference there, and it was clever how we targeted Gusto. Wood kept peeling onto Gusto. I wish we put the ball in the box a little bit more for him at times. There were opportunities second half to do that, but just clever play. Any thoughts on that goal, Prutz? But also just on the goal conceded, your take on it? Anything we could do better there with Madueke or not?
Is it? No, yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's a goal where you're kind of looking at each other and there's finger pointing. There's kind of inquest going on. Given obviously what we'd seen over the course of the game, and from Forest's attacking point of view, it's absolutely right that we're talking about Chris in the way that we are. But you do look at potentially going back to what you said about set pieces now and the ability in both boxes with regards to keeping it out. There's obviously a hefty level of responsibility that's being taken both on and off the pitch to get that right, which sounds again like common sense and should be absolutely the case, because by definition a set play you can plan to a certain degree, but then the ability to express themselves in the opposition box with good delivery from Ward-Prowse just shows that again it's the evolution of what Forest can bring to a Premier League football game. Chelsea rampant, of course, in the last few weeks to limit them, not limit them to just one goal, because that sounds like Forest are in a cup tie, and it's not the case. We're talking about a Forest side climbing up, hopefully, to be somewhere near the same platform as a club up in the top 6. So I think there's plenty to like about what we're seeing on the pitch. Potentially, too easy, the right phrase. You can always make attempts on goal infinitely more difficult, but sometimes in some instances these goals happen, and it's how you react to them. And I think from a Forest point of view, the reaction to conceding a goal and the reaction to scoring a goal and still pressing with 10 men again goes back to what we were saying very early on, which shows there's a team ethic and a team character and a team fortitude of, yes, we're away at Stamford Bridge, yes, we're down to 10 men, but yes, we can still go and try and win the game.
Excellent. Right, we've done 45 minutes on the game and haven't even got onto the second half of the show, which won't be half. It's going to have to be condensed because Pete did message me and say, well, this will take 2 hours. And I said, I'll rein people in, and I really haven't. So a word for Global Telemetrics, our second sponsors. Thank you very much for their support. The car pictured is Toyota Hilux. I'm reliably told by Mike from Global Telemetrics. It was one of many recovered in the last couple of months by Global Telemetrics, but they are being targeted around the country at this moment. So if you happen to own a Toyota Hilux, then look out and get hold of Global Telemetrics. I don't know if many people on this panel own a Toyota Hilux, but yeah, thanks for the support of Global Telemetrics as ever. Right, second part of the show, I want to discuss the upcoming games mostly, and also the bracket that we've just played. I remember on the live show Temps we discussed how many points we take from this run of games. So it was obviously Liverpool, Brighton, Fulham, Chelsea. I might be forgetting one, and I think we all said 4 or 5 points. Currently, we're on track for over 50 points, which is magnificent. So, how are you feeling right now about the season? And then we'll discuss what's coming up a little bit more specifically, but how it's gone thus far.
Got the third best defence in the Premier League behind Liverpool and Arsenal. We've conceded 6 goals. And I don't think that is freak occurrence or small sample size look now. I look at that blend of Murillo and Milenkovic. I look at how defensively sound but offensively progressive Alex Merino and Ola Reina are. I look at the impact that the replacement defenders have off the bench. I just feel that we've got a really comfortable base there. We're not free scoring, but we don't need to be while we're solid. So I've maintained my prediction that we can get to high 40s, touching 50. But also a quick glance at the table, and we see some of the stats from the West Hams and the Brentfords, and these sides that we weren't supposed to be past at this point. We see Crystal Palace in all kinds of trouble, and you start to think, why not? Why can't we get past that 14th, 15th? And into that 11th, 12th, 13th bracket, which is phenomenal progress between seasons in the Premier League. 50 points is going to be tough, but it's within striking distance. And if we are fortunate with injuries, if we do get these boys back in and we can sort the home form out, we've got this great formula away from home, which is already paying dividends. There's absolutely no reason why we can't be 12th or thereabouts and kick on from there. I think it's a really promising start. We've got every reason to be optimistic, and I think we've seen enough games now. This isn't a flash in the pan. The players are there, the method is there, everyone's buying in, and when those first 11 drop out, the backup is ready and willing to commit and do everything that's needed to maintain these standards. I'm not quite Greg Mitchell, let's book our Thursday Ryanair flights to Europe just in case, but we've got every chance of getting into that bracket, which is just above where I think we all pegged it pre-season.
So, I love the idea that Greg is booking a generic flight just to Europe. He'll just find himself on the continent somewhere. He'll make the game.
He's got cancelable hotels in every European capital.
To what degree then, Pete, will the upcoming games decide how close we can get to top 10 or in it? When you look at who we've got before the next international break, just so people know, it's Palace at home, Leicester away, West Ham at home, Newcastle away. Do you have to target them and set a points tally? Or is that a kind of a dangerous mindset in a sense?
Well, I think you'll have to ask Prutz that question, because I've got absolutely no idea how these things work in actual professional football. My feeling about it always is that we get a bit carried away with this sort of like, well, we've got Palace next up at home. We're going to have to win that one. I mean, it's October. That bracket of games will be worth as much as the next bracket of games. And we've already seen this season that Forest get results in the games that you don't expect them to, and sometimes don't come up good in the ones where you think they're going to. So for me, it's sort of, a hint irrelevant. Obviously, there are games there that you're really hoping that we can come away from points with, and there's this sort of looming feeling about the home form being a bit problematic. Personally, I'm really not that worried about the home form. I've said this before on the podcast, but last season just feels like a totally different beast to me, and I just don't see why it's desperately relevant to have a sort of a list of games that includes now and all the losses last season when we were really struggling and fighting for our lives, which is a totally different team. I don't think that'll be hanging over the players a great deal at all. It's a really different mindset. And really, have we been that far away from it at home? I think we're maybe struggling a little bit with the sort of, I think identity might be too lofty a word, but I think we're slightly struggling to work out what we are at home. To what extent can we dominate games and really sort of get on the front foot, where away from home we've got this real blueprint now, haven't we, that we can just sort of tweak a little bit in terms of the balance between attack and defence. But we sort of seem to really relish going away and knowing that we're not favourites and that we can go and upset teams and upset fan bases and such like. So I think there's some clearly some sort of work to be done there, but I'm not remotely worried about it. I wouldn't be desperately surprised if we came away from that next four that set next 4 games with really, really good points. But I also won't be terrified if we don't, because I believe this is a team that can regroup and go well in the bracket after that. So I'm not going to put sort of added pressure on those particular games, because I just it's a long old season. There'll be lots of surprises, but I think ultimately this is a team that can go on and achieve some pretty serious stuff. And I'm starting to think that my prediction, I think I said 13th at the start of the season, and I wasn't really sure whether I was being optimistic or not, or whether I really believed the things I was saying about the summer of stability and things just really coming together and adding quality rather than quantity and all that sort of stuff. But that sort of played out, and perhaps I wasn't being optimistic enough.
I think I might say Newcastle's away. It's at home, so it's 3 out of the next 4 games are at home. So 2 questions, Prutz. Do players view it in brackets? I think some managers do, some managers don't. And my only reservation about the team finishing higher up is partly the home form, but partly we don't score enough goals. I think we've only scored more than 1 goal in a game once. So what are your thoughts on those upcoming games and how excited we should be, in your opinion?
I think the excitement's there because of the starts of the season, and as you quite rightly say, the games and the teams that have been played against. Now, if there's a real kind of substance to the excitement, it's looking at these types of games against teams that are struggling and looking first and foremost to go unbeaten against them, and secondly to win the majority of the games that we're talking about. So that's where the credentials of the evolution then come from, don't they? You suddenly go, oh, well, is this what Forest are going to be this season? Or has it been a bright start that's going to get tempered with collective underperformance against teams that, given the form, Forest quite rightly, and every fan should be sat there thinking, well, we should beat these types of teams, given not only the form, but the confidence potentially that the players that they're coming up against are in. I wouldn't think, from a coaching strategy point of view, I would presume there'd be an average points kind of running points total that Forest will be chasing down, purely because you've got to kind of get ahead to look after the group whilst keeping things still very short-sighted in the game, the game that comes up next. And for the players, going back to the real characters that we're talking about, and given what Forest have experienced on the pitch and in the stands since coming back into the Premier League, I can't think for a second there's going to be the kind of getting ahead of themselves collective that sometimes derails a season at all. Nuno doesn't strike me as a manager like that, to get carried away. The players don't. Potentially, it's absolutely what a fan's kind of responsibility and joy is. What could this season be? Could Forest finish in the top 10 in the Premier League for the first time in God knows how long? So there's that real. That's where the excitement should come from. If it's also kind of dovetailing in with pulling the fingers out to a certain degree at home on the pitch, then the excitement levels are going to go off the charts. But I think you do look at these next games, you do look at where these teams are in the division, but they've all, take a Palace, for example, they might have lost a couple of key players, but they're fundamentally the same side that finished very strongly at the end of last season. So they need to click at some point, otherwise the manager gets binned and someone else comes in. You don't want it to be Monday Night Football, they click against Forest and suddenly everyone goes, oh, Christ, are we having as good a season as we thought we were going to have? So for Forest, it's dealing with the next game. The cliche of that in football will always remain, given the size and the brutality of what this season, of what this division is. But going back to what I've droned on about on here, and I apologise for that in the past by saying about finishing 17th and above, you look at the bottom end of the table, there's at least 5 or 6 team clubs that Forest are categorically better than. So that's almost like that's our benchmark now. Above those, and then we look even further up to see where you go off the back of potentially the next 2/3 of the season being amazing. So that goes back into what I said about the evolution of it, not hanging on, not surviving, but then thriving. And these next few games, I think, will be a good barometer of that, of what Forest believe themselves to be, but also what they can act out and perform like when the pressure is suddenly swung the other way, I think.
I'll tell you why I think they're an interesting barometer. I'll throw this to Tamps, is the 4 teams we're playing next are all teams that are going to sit in, and they're not going to come at us. Even Newcastle, I don't think. Leicester at home won't come at us. So the onus is on us to break down teams, and that's probably the one thing that we've struggled against. So that's why I think this is a real acid test as much as anything. What do you reckon?
Yeah, we definitely prefer counter-attacking against a broken field, don't we? Inviting on, absorbing pressure, then using the progressive passing and the wide pace to move up the field quickly. So it is a challenge we're yet to overcome. We haven't quite established a brand or a set of tactics that allows us to break down teams that are sitting deeper themselves. It's probably one of the remaining question marks against this side, but that's when you call on your creative players. And you hope Morgan can back in there. And you hope Elliot Anderson can continue doing what he's doing. And you perhaps see more of a role for Langer and Callum Hudson-Odoi starting together, which I think we all thought was the formula at the start of the year. And we haven't seen much. Their usage has been very tactical, very considered. And we haven't just chucked them out every single game. So maybe that's where we get to tactically. We decide that we want two wingers in the more traditional sense that can hurt fullbacks and break the field in a different way. But I think we are more comfortable, if you like, in this away from home style where we do exactly what we've just described, camp and break. And that's why the form table shows that we are so difficult to break down when we're hosted by the so-called bigger sides. I don't know what the answer is, Matt. I suspect there might be a bigger role for the wingers though, and that might be where we see Jota Silva from the start.
Just on Morgan, we haven't really discussed him because he's going to have a scan today. So I think the results of that scan will, shape lots of conversations. But there's not much we can say about it. And we hope he's okay because he walked off. But there was a lot of treatment on his ankle, which is a concern. So we'll wait and see on that and have some reflections on that when we know, especially if it's bad news, which obviously we hope it isn't. Right. Any final thoughts? Any other business you want to say about Pete Blackburn?
The only thing I probably want to mention is that I haven't sort of had the moment to in this pod or previous ones is just what a magnificent signing Milenkovic has been, because I've been very quick to criticise recruitment at Forest since this ownership, and I guess the previous one have been here. But my word, they've done some business on him and Murillo. A couple of centre halves signed for 20 odd million pounds, who might well be worth 5 times that combined. In the not too distant future. I think it's been sensational. You mentioned, I think it maybe was you, Matt, earlier, who said Milenkovic didn't put a foot wrong in the game. I'm struggling to think of a foot wrong he's put in any game since he's been here, which is pretty incredible, to be honest. So just wanted to say what a fantastic addition he's been, but otherwise nothing from me.
Temps, anything for you before we go?
Yeah, mine's a bit more trivial. So Camera Robin Hood Beer Festival at Trembridge this week. There's 1,000 beers being racked up as I speak. It runs Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You get tickets from tickets.trembridge.co.uk. I've picked out a few beers for Prutz, actually. Flow Rider, a 4.8% tropical pale ale with moderate bitterness.
Nice.
I know he likes his rap a little bit less gangster, so I think Flow Rider could be one for him. Yorkshire Blonde, I know he's partial to a bit of that. That's a pale session ale, 3.9%. And perhaps my favourite, this is a requirement of a aggressive Premier League centre mid, living on the edge, 5.9%, but a golden hoppy pale. So Prutz, if you make it down, they're all on me.
Amazing.
I'll see you all at Trent Bridge later this week.
Sound amazing. Love the sound.
Moderate bitterness. There you go.
Moderately bitter. That's my approach to life. Just be moderately bitter about everything.
Yeah, everything in moderation, including bitterness.
Yes.
Prutz, anything from you before we go?
I do actually, and I'm really glad that I remembered because my memory's terrible. The shout out to Dylan, and Dylan is a lad that I chat to all the time in my local Aldi in Harrogate. He's a lovely kid, and he's a big Forest fan, and he's been very happy these past few weeks, obviously, because things are going well. He's got a mate there as well who's a City fan who is as miserable as City fans normally look. But no, he's. I kept saying to him, I'll say hello to you on the podcast, and I keep forgetting. So this is me not forgetting Dylan amongst a lot of other people that tune in and watch and support Matt and his lovely job. So keep it up, and hello, Dylan.
Good stuff. Shout out as well to another young lad in William Hewson, I think. His mum, Anna, is in the chat. He had an operation this week. I think he was on his knee. Nasty looking business. So as he's back home now. So get well soon, William. Good luck with your recovery. Last one from me, just quickly. I know I drone on about this, but if you haven't voted already, do us a favour, vote for us in the finals of the Football Content Awards. We are shortlisted for Best Premier League Podcast and Best New Content Creator. Footballcontentawards.com/voting, and the link is in the description. We'll be back at some point this week. I don't really know exactly what's happening, but we'll muddle through and bring you some entertainment with moderate bitterness.
I mean, this is award-winning content right here, if I've ever read it. We're going to do another podcast at some stage.
Only if we get the votes.
Yeah. I didn't know what was happening with this show until about 8 o'clock last night. Whether it was happening or not.
Live from the beer festival, Matt. You're just getting progressively sloshed, and your opinion's getting more and more controversial.
Everybody.
Yeah,
you should do Mikey live from the beer festival. That'd be colourful.
Oh God, Mikey was happy yesterday. You play well when Mikey's happy in the WhatsApp group. First message is talking about the bottle of the players and everything. Yeah, so it must have gone well. Right. Thanks very much for everyone's company. Do us a favor. We've gone over an hour. Hit like on this video. You can subscribe. You can become a channel member. Give us a lovely review on iTunes and all that stuff. I've lost my little video for that. So yeah, just do that, please. It'd make a big difference. Prutz is shaking his head as a professional broadcaster. You haven't talked about this was weeks ago, your little header challenge where they almost all excluded you, but Curtis Davies took pity on you and then you headed it in.
I know.
Header challenge.
So it's amazing how much effort we put into that as opposed to the actual content of the show. It's it's crazy. Yeah.
How many takes, Prutz? How many takes?
Oh, well, that was the second that day. We've done it every weekend since the season started. So what's that? 21, 22 attempts. I mean, you always get that one from production going, well, you can do that. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, there's not much call to head a ball into a dustbin on a pitch. I said I could 2-foot the dustbin and then start on you. If that's what you want, that's easy. That's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's easy, but you can. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, it's easy. No, it's not. And I presume if anyone's seen me on here try and trap a football, it's almost comical in its inability.
Lovely stuff. Oh, quick shout out as well. Sky are fantastic, obviously, but match of the day too. I thought Graham Potter's a really good pundit. I thought his analysis was really good, and Joe Hart has been a really good addition to that. And match of the day too, they give you more time to review games. So fair play to them. Fans give.
Didn't realize football was on any other channel but Sky. What's his show? What match of the day?
Match of the day. I think it's been on.
Prutz has got his eye. I'm not going to mention JJ, but obviously now Gary's on his way out end of the season.
Step away from the defamation terms. Jesus Christ!
I'm back in Prutton to replace Lineker. Forget Chappers. JJ will be back, but
he'll be. Come on, I mean, Chappers is I've worked with Chappers. He's amazing. So I'm not saying put your money on Chappers because I have got no idea, but the fact that he's very good and does what he does would suggest that that's the case. But anyway,
screw Chappers. Prutton in. That's all we say. Hosting match of the day. Michael Temple, thank you very much.
Cheers, fellas.
Pete Blackburn, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. And if you have already voted in the awards, don't worry about clearing your browsing history. I know you know how to do that and vote again.
Yeah. You can vote many times and clear your browsing history. Yeah, you don't have to. Right. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good day. If we don't see you tomorrow, then we shall see you soon.